So far away, Lucas. Let's talk about Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
This is gonna be fun.
Oh shit! No, I broke my thing. Oh, it's a twist off anyway. Who cares? The monolithic megacorporation known as Disney is pretty protective of pretty much everything it owns, to the point where actors and actresses working on its movies basically disappear from public life while working on one of its projects, as was the case with Marie Tran. So far away, Lucas, when I mentioned we were talking about The Last Jedi, you made a noise, and for all the people yelling about the film in the comments right now, without watching the video, why did you make that noise?
Just because, I know that we don't just hate on The Last Jedi for, all of our lives for basically no reason.
Like, we've not made disliking, the third worst Star Wars movie our entire personality. And we know that there's going to be people who are annoyed at the fact that we're not shitting on this movie.
Although I am, I'm very much in contention with the third worst.
Well, I don't even know how to define it. It's I think it's a pretty decent Star Wars.
It's one of the, 8 bad Star Wars movies, right? It's just, they're all just nebulously bad apart from, 3 of them.
Yeah, and I have no problems with The Last Jedi beyond that couple of story beats. And I rewatched it recently when I was, writing this article. And one of the things that really struck me is everyone in this film is really good. All the acting is amazing, and specifically Marie Tran, which we're going to be, talking about in a moment. But yeah, it's just a really just solidly acted movie. Everyone's doing a great job, and it looks really good.
Yeah,
there are so many great shots in that movie. I was just watching and I'm like, man, this looks really good.
So I've not watched The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker in a little while now because, the discourse is just in my head and I want to try and escape it a bit. But, I do remember, them actually giving a shit and having good performances in The Last Jedi. And not to say that it's a perfect movie or anything, but it's Rose's storyline was to do with a sister dying and stuff, wasn't it? It was quite a cool storyline.
Yeah, and it's, I think as well, the film is only poor in the sense that they completely abandon all the plot threads in it, in the third one, which retroactively made it worse. On release, it was a perfectly fine, serviceable movie. It actually had some interesting elements, like the idea of Luke Skywalker not being the character people thought he was. And then it's kind of meta that fans reacted not fans, those kind of fans reacted poorly to that, which is kind of what the movie's saying. Luke Skywalker would never act like this. And he goes, how the fuck do you know? You saw 4 days of his life.
Yeah, and it's really weird because I was totally up for The Last Jedi breaking those Star Wars traditions down, and that's actively my favourite part about that movie. And just as you say, the whiplash that happened with Rise of Skywalker, where it's no, forget about everything we told you. Not everyone's important. 3 people in the universe are important, and Rey's got to have parents that matter. They're oh.
That was one of the most interesting aspects of it, the idea of your parents were nobody, which is oh.
That was the coolest reveal.
Yeah, it's oh, they were nobody. Yeah, you're not important, but she actually is. It's that's one of those classic storytelling things of, yeah, it doesn't matter where you come from, it matters what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the entire film's about, is the actions of the individual. It doesn't matter about who you are, as long as it's what you do in that moment. And they completely shit all over it in the sequel to, placate the weird, racists yelling at, John Boyega and, Marie Tran on Twitter.
Yeah, it's they did a good job of flipping our expectations on our heads and then immediately flip them back for the sequel, no, okay, we're sorry. Which,
like I said, retroactively makes all the reveals worse. Just one of the, just most visual examples is Luke Skywalker, when, she hands him the lightsaber, and he's fuck that.
Mm-hmm.
He's fuck being a Jedi. He's the Jedi suck ass.
Yep.
In the very next film, which is set, 4 days later, and it's and he hands her back the lightsaber. This is the most important thing in the world. Why would you ever get rid of this? It's what?
Can't believe I threw that away in the last movie. What was I thinking?
Jedi's weapon deserves more respect.
And it's god damn it, just have a consistent storyline, or just all the stuff with, like, Rey being a nobody. And it's like, well, I don't mean you're a nobody. I mean that nobody knew who you really were. You're actually Palpatine's... It's like, oh, God.
No, Cole, because her parents were nobody, but her grandparents. So for fuck's sake.
It's like, oh, way to shit on the most interesting things that happen in Star Wars since I Am Your Father. Anyway, let's bring it back to Kelly Marie Tran. And are you familiar at all with her career pre-Star Wars?
No. As far as memory serves me, Last Jedi is the only movie that I've seen her appear in.
Well, that's not surprising, Lucas, because she didn't have a career prior to Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
She was a struggling actress who was genuinely considering quitting acting entirely because she just could not get roles. And that's despite the fact she's very fucking good in the roles that she's had, because she was in, of all things, like college humor skits.
Am I not Asian enough to do those things?
You're only an eighth.
Yeah, what is that even?
Certainly your father would be Asian, but your children, 1/16th, that's nothing. That's like half a slice of pizza.
That's not even a snack.
Oh, right, okay.
That's where she got, like, her big break, and she was so disillusioned with acting. And it's something we mentioned in a video that went out earlier this month, I think, depending on when this gets released, talking about Hey Q Kwan from Everything Everywhere All at Once, where just there were no opportunities for Asian men. And with Kelly Marie Tran, it's like, and she found herself getting passed over for a lot of roles because she's an Asian woman who doesn't have, like, one of the 3 acceptable body types for a woman by Hollywood standards.
I mean, just in general, like, if Short Round can't find any casting roles, like, you're going to have a rough time.
And she was, as mentioned, on the verge of quitting until she went for the Star Wars audition. And one of the key things about the Star Wars audition that really might have helped her stand out is the fact she had no idea what Star Wars was.
What?
And she was familiar with it, but she never watched one of the movies.
Oh, right, okay. Like, I was like, do those people... It's like when someone says, like, I don't know what Mickey Mouse is, and you're like...
So she wasn't too familiar with the movies, but she was a huge nerd.
Mm-hmm.
And she went in for her audition wearing a Ravenclaw tie. And she was really nervous about going in for her audition, because when all the other actors who were auditioning to play her character, do you remember the name?
Rose?
Yes, Rose Tico. They were all dressed more conservatively, and she was like, do I really belong here? And she went, no, I'm going to go in. I'm going to go in and just, like, act the way I think this character would. Mm-hmm. And it ended up working out for her because the character of Rose is... Oh, God, I got a text. Oh, yeah, leave me alone. Damn it, I was in the middle of making a point. And it ended up working out for her because the character of Rose is, like, a quiet, reserved, like, bit of an antisocial dork.
Yeah.
Which is what Kelly Marie Tran is. So she ended up perfectly fitting the character as they were written.
It was nice talking to you, Rose. May the Force be with you.
Wow. You too.
But I can't really imagine that being in this movie has made her want to continue acting much more than prior.
Yeah, we could talk about that in a moment. But in regards to how she got cast, like I said, she went in for auditions, like a massive battery of auditions. And Rian Johnson has gone on record saying the instant he saw her talking to John Boyega, he's like, that's Rose.
Hi, what's your name and what's your name?
Hi, I'm Kelly Tran. I just finished a chemistry read for Star Wars. I feel crazy.
Action.
I like him. I say we bring him along, but what do you think, though?
I don't trust him.
Like, trust? We don't have to trust him. We just have to believe he'll do what he says he'll do.
Okay, yeah, that's literally the definition of the word trust.
But why would he lie to us?
Money.
I really like Kelly. She is like Rose stepped up for me. The character that I had in my head when I was writing, it was like she showed up.
And on a rewatch of that movie, I have to agree, like, the chemistry between her and John Boyega is really strong.
Yeah, as far as I can remember, like, they were really good to, like, see on screen together. And it was just kind of like, I didn't particularly like the Canto Bite planet, like the gambling bit and stuff, but like those two carried that storyline quite well.
Yeah, and I'm just going to give props to her for her acting ability as well, because like it being her first role, and it's a Star Wars movie, and her first like moment on screen is like an entire speech, and it's the bit where she's talking to John Boyega about, wait, you're Finn. Wow, a hero. Like, you won't believe how many people had to tase for trying to escape. Then she runs that gamut of emotions where she realizes he's trying to escape. And they have like that standoff against each other. And in that moment, she shows like 8 different emotions in the space like 10 seconds. And she shows them all really well.
Anyway, gotta get back to what I was doing, so...
What were you doing?
Just doing some
Checking
checks.
the escape pods.
No, it's a routine checks.
By boarding one. With a packed bag.
Okay, listen.
Yeah, just like, oh wow, you're a hero that's trying to fucking leave us. What?
And like, you know, her acting in that moment of her having that realization and like the on the spot twist she does of like, hang on, you're running away. No, people died. My sister died for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to give props to her performance in the deleted scenes, because The Last Jedi is a film that has so many deleted scenes that should never have been deleted.
Oh, right, okay.
Like, when you watch like the deleted scenes from Marvel movies, like, why don't you just leave it in? Like,
Yeah.
no one's going to go to a Marvel movie and complain it's too long. Same with a Star Wars movie.
I don't know.
Leave it
I
all
did
in.
watch Eternals, Carl.
That's fair. The exception to the rule. Like, there's like so many great deleted scenes. Like, there's one where it's Joe like about to be executed,
Oh, yes, yeah.
and you have like is it Hooks, Admiral Hooks, and he goes over and he starts giving a shit.
Mm.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, you're giving a shit," and like something like Kelly did, she just bit his hand. She just bites him like a rabid dog, and he's just like, "What the fuck is going on?"
But we will always win.
And like, and Rian Johnson in the commentary is like, "Yeah, I love this scene, but we had to cut it for pacing."
Of course, yeah.
And then there's like another bit as well where it's the elevator, where they're going up the elevator. You've probably seen this deleted scene with the stormtrooper that recognises Finn.
Oh, yeah.
Again, a scene they should not have deleted because it leads into something we can talk about in a moment. But like, her nervousness is so palpable, where she's like got her hand on the gun, and like they're all eyeing each other up, and it's so tense. And I don't know why they cut it out, because like their acting in that is really like, it's like when they're like. They're all like glance at, should I just shoot this person? Have we been rumbled? Have we been rumbled? And the guy's like, hey, FN127, you made it. Nice to see one of like the stormtroopers make it.
And it's like, it's really weird that they don't kind of like, you know, obviously for the most part, Finn being a stormtrooper is kind of just like brushed over after a while.
Do you know why that is?
Is it just because like they want to downplay the fact that he's essentially an evil guy to start with?
It's not that. It's that there was going to be a plot thread that was hinted at in The Last Jedi that got completely dropped. And it was going to be that Finn was going to lead a stormtrooper rebellion.
Oh, shit.
Jokes like, and it's one of those things where it's a plot thread that was hinted at in Force Awakens that Rian Johnson picked up on, that what's the guy's name now? J.J. Abrams, that's it. That J.J. Abrams just dropped. And it's where Finn's like, I'm a child soldier.
Yeah.
So you know that bit in like The Force Awakens where like Finn is a stormtrooper and then he just like realizes, holy shit, we're the bad guys. And starts panicking.
Obviously, you know, the iconic thing of having like his squad mate's blood all over his face is like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, he just starts like, he becomes panicking Skywalker and he realizes, oh my god, what am I doing? Rian Johnson watched that part, thought it'd be kind of interesting if more. Why don't more stormtroopers do that? Why is Finn the one stormtrooper who's ever realized what the fuck are we doing? And his idea was that Finn would eventually lead a stormtrooper rebellion.
Yeah.
That's why he put in scenes of stormtroopers interacting with Finn and recognizing him and just going about their daily business. And there's another deleted scene that also hinted at that, where it's Joe Phasma, the fight with Phasma, which is
of
like
course,
1 second long in the final cut. It was originally a lot longer in the director's cut, and it had a moment where Finn directly calls her out for just like, you know, bitching out on the like the Death Star, or the Death Star Mark II, what the fuck, or Mark III, I guess, in canon.
Like, was that the Starkiller base?
Yeah, do you know how like she completely sells everybody out?
Well, yeah, because she's got a gun pointed at her, Carl.
Yeah, like Finn calls her out of like, yeah, you talk about being loyal to the cause, but when it was your neck on the line, you immediately bitched out and sold everybody out.
Your neck was threatened. You squealed like a whoop hog. The evidence blew up at the base, but you and I know the truth. When I put a gun to your head, you shut down Starkiller shields.
And all the stormtroopers, like with the guns trained on Finn, like start looking around. And they slowly start to lower their gun, then Captain Phasma kills them all.
Oh.
And that was like, you know, supposed to set up the idea of Finn being like, well, I want to free, like the stormtroopers aren't evil, They're just like, under the thumb of an evil guy. I know there's humanity left in them, which is what all those little scenes are meant to show.
Yeah, because in The Force Awakens, they talk about, like, Hux is saying, like, talking about, I think they're talking about, like, the performance of the trainee stormtroopers and stuff, and how, like, some of them aren't showing that they're, like, fully committed to the cause and things, and it's like,
It's a plot thread that they completely abandon within The Force Awakens. Because don't forget, The Force Awakens, like, opens with that great scene, Finn, like, taking his helmet off, and you realise, wow, stormtroopers are people. You fast forward to Jakku, Finn is, like, cheering as he blows up child soldier pilot TIE fighters.
well, even
Like, he's going like, woo! And cheering as they blow up TIE fighters full of child soldiers.
Even when they find them at the bar, and he starts, like, fighting with the lightsaber, and he's trying to, like, kill his own friends, essentially.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Rian Johnson didn't like, and he wanted to explore the idea of, like, stormtroopers being people. Because, like, how many shots are there in Star Wars in general of stormtroopers being ordinary guys? Like, do you like in Force Awakens, like, where they do the thing, like, the best shot in the entire film?
Kylo Ren bit.
Yeah, Kylo Ren's having his fucking tantrum, and the stormtrooper's like, nope!
Just let's go back. Come on.
But how weird is that, though, when they have shots like that and then treat them like disposable cannon fodder to be killed for your amusement?
Yeah, and even in that scene that I was talking about, like, Finn gets called out by that stormtrooper and he says traitor to him.
Yeah, because he recognises him.
Like, he's, upset about it.
Yeah, he's disappointed in Finn, and that's one of those plot threads that Rian Johnson picked up on, explored in his own film, and was completely abandoned for the third movie. Speaking of completely abandoned, you have Kelly Marie Tran, and when she was cast as Rose Tico, she basically disappeared off the face of the Earth. So you're probably a bit familiar with, like, Disney being very protective and secretive about upcoming projects, but are you aware of how ridiculous it gets sometimes?
I think, like, I heard a lot about, people being flown in for, like, endgame stuff and, like, fake scenes being shot, and, like, they had, like, Michael Rooker on set to not spoil Guardians 2 and things, but I haven't heard too much. Yeah,
and they write fake scripts, and they release fake promo shots, and they'll edit trailers to put fake shit in them. But in regards to The Last Jedi, when Kelly Marie Tran was cast, she was flown to London, but she was told, you're not allowed to tell your family where you are. Which sounds a bit suspicious, like, we're going to fly you to a foreign country and you're not allowed to tell anyone where you are. So what she did is she told her family she was in Canada filming an indie film in the wilderness, so wouldn't have access to the internet a lot, to explain why she couldn't talk to them.
Right, okay.
And then when she was filming, she was in a hotel, and she would be driven from her hotel to the recording studio to do her work, but she'd be driven in a car with blacked out windows, and when they didn't have a car with blacked out windows, you have to wear a black cloak over her head.
This is quite weird, considering this is, like, an actor that's not tied in with the franchise yet.
If people saw her in a car, they wouldn't know she's going to be in Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
And they still
because,
made her
like,
do
she's
that.
not been known to be in Star Wars yet. Like, you see, like, John Boyega on the way to a film set, like, well, maybe that would have been Star Wars.
But yeah, so they made her hide under a cloak. Like, they literally just put... Do you know that bit in, like, the Obi-Wan show with they put Leia under the coat? They should have done that.
Oh, God.
I rewatched that, like, show. I don't know why I did. I was just, like, looking at it, like, is it as bad as I remember? And I forgot they put in a shot of, like, little baby Leia looking out from under the coat in case you didn't realise she was there.
See, I think it would have been better if they did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles of, like, the trench coat with the hat.
Oh, it's just so bad. But yeah, that's what they did to Kelly Marie Tran. And to sell the fact she was in Canada, she emailed her parents pictures of Canada she found on Google. And then when she went back to visit them on a rare day off, she got maple syrup off Amazon and took it back with her.
No.
And yeah, look, I got some maple syrup from Canada.
Yeah, I lied to them and said I was doing an indie movie in Canada. I bought the maple syrup. I went all in.
They believed you, which is incredible.
I'm a good kid, and I never lie until now.
A great liar. Good job.
Of course, because, that's the one thing that Canada has, maple syrup.
Yeah, it sounds like the start of Taken, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's just Disney taking her, and she basically disappeared off the face of the earth while they were making the film. And she disappeared even harder when they finished making it, because she realised, this is probably the last time I'm ever going to be able to go out in public without someone recognising me.
Yeah.
So what
true.
she did, so she went to South Africa and went to a animal reserve that had no internet, no electricity, and no running water.
I mean, until you said like the no running water, I'm like, that sounds like a pretty good deal.
And I'm thinking now, I bet she wished she went there after the film came out.
Yeah.
Because, like, fucking hell. Like, it just wasn't good for her, was it? Because, like, as I said, she's great in that role. I watched it, and like, her performance is fan-fucking-tastic. And, like, just her acting is, like, top-notch. Like, she's acting alongside, like, John Boyega and holding her own.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's there, she's holding her own with, like, John Boyega, or, like, the best new young actors on the scene.
Who had also been around for, like, 10 years at that point.
Yeah, and like, John Boyega has like, been established like a fantastic actor.
Mm-hmm.
And like she's like holding her own against him, and then she just got a bunch of shit because she's Asian. And have you like ever read up on like how much she got shat on by Star Wars?
No, I know that like there's a lot of just whitewashing the marketing, especially over in China.
Yeah, so that was like John Boyega specifically got that one, wasn't it? Where like John Boyega was removed from the poster and replaced with TIE fighters because he's black, and it's like fucking hell in China. Yeah. With Kelly Marie Tran specifically, she had about 1.5 minutes of screen time in Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, she's a main character in this, like
Yeah, she's like one of the 3 main storyline plots. Like,
yep. So
she has one of those 3.
She has 1.5 minutes of screen time. They removed her romance subplot with Finn, even though they have like phenomenal chemistry, and they didn't replace it with the only other acceptable ship, which is like Finn and Poe.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, like I wouldn't have mind if it was just for Finn and Poe.
Yeah, so they removed her from that, and this is the one where I couldn't believe it. I read it and I went, "There's no fucking way they did this." Is they put the character of Rose on merchandise, pre-release material, and posters, and then removed her.
What?
So she was on posters and merchandise, then they made the active decision to remove the character from those.
Fucking hell.
It's just, you look at that and you go, why are you placating the absolute worst elements of your fan base?
And I am glad that, like, Disney have started to make a trend towards, like, away from that, But, you have to just think of the cynical way of, like, they realised that was what was more profitable.
Yeah. It's like, you go back, like we mentioned Marvel movies, like how many of the Avengers toys and bits of merchandise don't have Black Widow on them? Because of that cynical mindset of like, well, little boys won't buy something with a girl on it. It's like, what about all the little girls that watch your programs?
And like, Black Widow's movie never got approved until like Wonder Woman did well.
And people always talk about these decisions if they're politically motivated. It's like, they're not, because companies don't care. They care about extracting the most profit from their product. And the fact that it's profitable to downplay the parts of an Asian woman. And I don't know if it's better or worse that the company did it to make money. Because obviously I will never experience that kind of discrimination. But I don't know what would feel worse, though, to be told it's not profitable or economically viable to put you on the poster. Or whether it'd hurt more to hit you, we want to placate racists. Like, what would hurt more? That we're placating racists because that's what our politics are, or we are apolitical as an organisation, but it is more profitable to placate the racists. Like, I don't know what would sting more for me, and maybe like if we've got any minority fans in the audience, you can let us know in the comments. Like, you know what, we'll try and like pin some of your comments if we can, rather than letting the people who are just screaming about The Last Jedi sucking ass instead of like moving on with their lives and getting a personality.
And let's just both put down our opinion right here and make it very, very clear.
Yeah, sure.
We wish it was neither.
We wish it was neither.
That it would just be that all of these good actors would be treated nicely and with respect and not shot on because of any reason.
Well, that's what makes it so frustrating, because, like I said, on the rewatch, like, everyone in that film's great. All the acting great, and I will mention, because I know it always gets brought up when it comes to the criticisms of The Last Jedi. Have you seen that clip floating around, or the screenshot of Mark Hamill talking about how he disagrees with the direction Rian Johnson took for his character?
I think I've seen like snippets, yeah.
And there's a reason you've only seen snippets, Lucas, because I also watched the documentary, so there's any supplementary information about like the making of the film to include in this article, and they always cut that quote short. So I'm probably gonna butcher it a little bit here, but the paraphrase version I remember is Mark Hamill says, Yeah, I don't agree with the direction that Rian Johnson is taking with Luke Skywalker.
Well, see, again, I mean, and I told Brian this, it's no surprise. I said, I just fundamentally disagree with your concept of this character and how you use him.
And what those kind of fans do is they screenshot that and say, look, even Mark Hamill doesn't like it. And they leave out the very next thing he says, which is, but I don't own Luke Skywalker.
Now, having said that, I'll do everything within my power to realize your vision. Because, it's not my character to decide. It belongs to other people. They just rent it out to me.
Like, it's very telling that those kind of fans leave that part out and then do the exact thing Mark Hamill says he doesn't have the right to do as Luke Skywalker. Of claiming ownership over the character and deciding, that they are the be-all and end-all of what the character should be.
It's very convenient that part's always left out.
Mm-hmm. But it gets used as a club, look, even Mark Hamill didn't like the direction they took with Luke Skywalker. Yeah, but he didn't agree with it, but he respected it and understood that it is the writer's prerogative to do with the character what they want. He is not the be-all and end-all of what Luke Skywalker should be.
I mean, he doesn't even play the character anymore, Carl, because, AI does now.
But yeah, he respects, the role of the writer to decide the path the character should take.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, that, as I said, it's very convenient they always leave that part out and then do the exact thing Mark Hamill was saying he, as the actor who plays Luke Skywalker, doesn't have the right to do, which is criticize and say, that's not what they do, they should do something else. No, I respect what he's writing and I'm interested to see where it goes. And that's the thing as well. I agree with him. I was interested to see where that story was going to go right up until they just course corrected everything. I was like, fuck's sake.
Oh, God. As I say, Carl, just that third movie was just pure whiplash.
It's hard to think as well of another example of that in media history of a film being retroactively ruined by its direct sequel. And the only one I can really think of is Terminator, which I mentioned in the previous video.
I know the one that you talked about. It's Terminator.
Yeah. But that's the only other example I can think of, and maybe there's people out there who can think of more. But a sequel that directly contradicts and retroactively ruins an earlier film in its well, I guess horror movies they do that a lot because there's so many horror movies where they they course correct or retcon stuff. But a big franchise
I think that's so common in horror movies that it's not even worth pointing out because it's just horror movies wouldn't exist otherwise.
But it's I think with Star Wars, it's such a massive the idea that Disney of all companies, especially when you consider how much they plan out Marvel stuff. They have Marvel movies planned till 2030. But for some reason, they let the writers of each Star Wars movie decide what was happening on a whim.
Yeah, the fact that they didn't even sit down and get an overarching idea of what the trilogy stood for or anything, the messaging behind it, not even the writing, just the general themes at very least.
Yeah, let's write the ending and then here's what the ending's going to be, now write towards that sort of thing. I put a lot of the blame on J.J. Abrams because if you go back and watch a lot of films in his filmography, something he is awful for is introducing plot elements that are interesting, but then never answering them. We talked Force Awakens, where he introduces the idea of stormtroopers being people, being brainwashed child soldiers who have the capability to break that programming and realize what they're doing is wrong. And then he never mentions it ever again.
Yeah, he's very good at build up and world building, but not necessarily finishing storylines.
Yes, and then for some reason they let him finish the storyline. He's 1 week. That's he's one of his greatest strengths is introducing interesting plot elements.
Mm-hmm.
And one of Rian Johnson's greatest strengths, because he gets memed on a lot. That guy wrote some of the best episodes of Breaking Bad. I think he wrote Ozymandias.
Oh wow, okay.
And I thought if I'll look it up. He wrote some of the best episodes of Breaking Bad. He is a fantastic fucking writer. He's great at writing characters, and he's great at picking up those plot threads from earlier things that were mentioned offhand in early seasons and stuff, and then building upon them to create an interesting narrative and twist.
A lot of Star Wars fans, as you say, dunk on him a lot, but at this time of recording, two very popular films are Knives Out and Glass Onion, both made by him, and it's
and they're two mystery movies that have incredibly satisfying conclusions with a lot of twists and turns in them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, he wrote some of the best episodes of Breaking Bad. We're never going to get it, but I do like to think sometimes what would have happened if either he got a chance to finish the story as it's written, or they brought in a director who picked up the ball that he, left and ran with it, instead of, kicking it off the field and getting a new one.
Yeah, if it was him or anyone else following along some of, the plot lines in the second movie of, anyone can be important, anyone can become a Jedi, just so much of it, I think, would have led to a more interesting third film.
Yeah, or, the Stormtrooper rebellion aspect, or, Kylo Ren trying to lure Rey over to the dark side, and then Rey simultaneously trying to lure him over to the light side, and then the power struggle. Because that's the thing as well, it's set up for, the Stormtrooper rebellion is perfectly set up by the end of that first movie. Snoke's dead, there's a power vacuum.
Well, it almost, by the end of that movie, sets up, a neutral ground being set up that isn't Jedi or Sith.
Yeah, you now have, this billion-person strong army of Stormtroopers with no strong leadership, which is, I think what he was trying to do, of, that's perfect setup for a Stormtrooper rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine if, Finn would be able to go into, I don't know, the big flagship or something, speak over the tannoy of, I'm a former Stormtrooper. I'm like you, I know what I'm doing. You don't have to fight for this, there's a better future. You can fight for it, but I imagine, half the Stormtroopers, you know what, yeah, fuck fighting for the Empire. What's the Empire ever fuck? All we do is blow up planets and harass people. Fuck that.
Regardless, I think there's so many ideas that were better than just well, she's a Palpatine.
Yeah, it's that thing of, I mentioned it before, of that great moment when I was watching, I think it's the exact moment I was just completely burned out on Star Wars, is a playthrough of KOTOR I watched once, where just it gets to a point they're in space, and they're looking at the entire universe, and there's 1 million planets and 1 billion stars, and the person playing the game just says, and just think, in this entire wide open universe, only 3 people matter.
Our look, among this infinite vast array of stars, 8 people matter.
And I was like, that's Star Wars, and it's what they did. It's they're saying that's you're a nobody. Well, she's a nobody, but she's the most important person in this story. And then they end with that little kid, when he force grabs the broom. It's oh wow, Jedi still exist, but maybe the idea of the Jedi shouldn't exist, but people with these powers can forge their own path.
People can still use the Force, but not necessarily be Jedi or Sith. Yeah, kill the tradition.
Yeah, but maintain the ethos of protecting the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's instead it's no, you're a Palpatine. You're not nobody. You're the most important person who's ever lived. You're a direct descendant of the central figure in all 3 parts of what would you even call it, the Nintilogy or something like that?
Yeah,
the non-trilogy.
Yeah,
you
non-trilogy.
So you're not nobody. You're the most important person who's ever fucking lived. And they didn't even deliver on that when she says, I am the Sith and I am the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
If the third film was just course correcting and just wanking off fans who only want to see the stuff they remember, why did she, when she said that, just the ghost of every Jedi from the previous movies turn up?
Yeah.
All that film was meant to be, just wanking off those fans. Why did they not double down?
I mean, I guess they did when they made a show just to get Liam Neeson to come back for 10 seconds.
Man, people are going to hate this one. And that's the shame, isn't it? There's
so
no nuance online. It's we've criticised the movie, we've praised the movie, but ultimately we think, it's a 7, 8 out of 10.
But it's more interesting than Rise of Skywalker.
And it's more interesting to talk about because at least the plot threads that are introduced, at least they have interesting conclusions when you theorise about their potential solution.
Mm-hmm.
And then people just shit on it because it's got a black person in it, or a lady is in charge. It's okay. Is that the discussion you want? Is that what you want to talk about?
Well, they also wanted to talk about blue milk.
Yeah. And it's yeah, blue milk. Where do you think you fucking got it from? Where do you think milk comes from? I like the idea of Luke being a fucking hobo in space.
He used to be a
really
moisture
like
farmer.
Yeah. I like that. I like how fucking just disgusting and crap. Like, the idea of that film is it's deconstructing the image you have in your head of Luke. Like, he's the legendary Jedi Knight who saved the world. And he's like, he's just a fucking loser who got lucky. And they highlight that and they talk about it. It's like, I'm going to burn the sacred Jedi text. I don't need a lightsaber. It's like, well, no, Lucas, your lights. It's the most important thing.
Oh.
Oh.